He walked out on his pregnant wife, all for the fleeting charm of his secretary. To him, she was just a chapter in his past, until the day she returned with triplets. And in one moment, she shattered the perfect little life he had built. Welcome back, everyone. Or if it's your first time here, welcome to the place where real-life-inspired stories unfold with every twist and turn. Today's story is about betrayal, survival, and poetic justice, where a woman who was abandoned at her lowest didn't just survive. She came back stronger, and her return was the moment her ex-husband's carefully crafted world began to crumble. Hit that like button if you believe karma always finds its way. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because these stories are just getting started. Tell us in the comments, what would you do if someone who abandoned you came crawling back? And don't forget to share this video with friends who love emotional dramas with an unforgettable ending. Stay until the very end, because what she does next will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about forgiveness and revenge. Let's dive in. He left his pregnant wife for his secretary, but years later she returned with triplets and shattered his perfect life. The Manhattan skyline blazed against the twilight sky as Darlene Hill stepped from her black Bentley Bentayga onto Fifth Avenue's pristine sidewalk 8 years had forged. Her transformation from a broken pregnant woman clutching divorce papers to the CEO of Phoenix Industries a half-billion-dollar empire bearing her middle name tonight marked more than a return to the city that witnessed her. Destruction she returned as its conqueror Miss Hilda Penthouse is. Ready for your arrival, her assistant James spoke softly into his earpiece as he held the car door Camden, and the children landed 20 minutes ago there. Waiting for you, Darlene's heart warmed at the mention of Camden Pierce and her. Triplets her family, the family that had risen from the ashes of Wayne Larson's. Betrayal tell them, I'll be up in 10 minutes. I need a moment, as James nodded. And stepped back, Darlene tilted her head upward, scanning the towering building. Whitmore Tower, 50 floors of glass and steel, now crowned by her company's logo. Across the top 3 levels, Wayne's offices occupied floors 12 through 15. The sweet irony wasn't lost on her 8 years ago. I couldn't even afford a studio apartment in Queens tonight. I own the penthouse of Manhattan's most exclusive tower. The memories crashed over her like waves against a storm. Battered sure, she had been 24, fresh out of Columbia Business School with her MBA. Starried and desperately in love with Wayne Larson. He had been 27, charming, ambitious, and completely broke, but Darlene had seen potential in him, brilliant potential that just needed the right foundation. Marry me, Darlene, Wayne whispered against her lips that night in their tiny apartment, the engagement ring. He couldn't afford glinting in their candle-lit dinner's glow. I'm going to build an empire, and I want you beside me as my queen, she said. Yes, without hesitation, her heart so full, she thought it might burst. What followed were 3 years of pure magic. Wayne's tech startup Larson Enterprises flourished with $50 million from Darlene's trust fund money. She gave freely, believing in their shared dream. Her family's business and political connections opened doors Wayne's charm alone couldn't reach. We're going to change the world together, he used to say, holding her close in their penthouse bed. The penthouse her money had purchased you and me against everything. Baby Darlene's hand unconsciously moved to her stomach as she remembered the joy on Wayne's face when she told him about the pregnancy triplets, their miracle babies conceived during a romantic weekend in the Hamptons. In the beach house her family owned 3 babies. Wayne had laughed, spinning her around their living room. Our own little empire starts right here, Mrs. Wilson. I love you so damn much. For 4 months, they had been blissfully happy. Wayne would talk to her belly every night, promising their unborn children the world. He designed 3 nurseries, bought tiny business suits as a joke, and spent hours reading pregnancy books. Then everything changed. Bethany Cross had started as Wayne's secretary when Darlene was 5 months pregnant, young, blonde, ambitious, and completely without morals at first. Darlene had felt sorry for the girl, single mother struggling to make ends meet. She'd even helped Bethany get better health insurance through Wayne's company. The betrayal had been swift and brutal. Darlene's breath caught as she remembered that November afternoon. She had come home early from her prenatal appointment, glowing from seeing her babies on the ultrasound, eager to share the pictures with Wayne. She had found them in their bed-to-bed where Wayne had whispered his love to her just that morning. It's not what it looks like. Wayne had stammered, scrambling for his clothes, while Bethany pulled a sheet around herself with a satisfied smirk, but it was exactly what it looked like and had been going on for months. "I'm in love with her, Darlene," Wayne had said 2 days later, his voice cold and detached as he handed her the divorce papers. "This marriage was a mistake. You're too intense, too controlling." "Bethany makes me feel free, as if loving him completely had been a prison. What about our babies?" Darlene had whispered, her hand protectively covering her swollen belly. "I'll pay child support, obviously, but I can't be tied down by this. I'm building something important here, and I need a partner who understands that the legal battle had been swift and merciless. Wayne's lawyers paid for what her money had frozen her. Accounts claiming she was emotionally unstable and a flight risk they had painted her as a gold digger who had trapped Wayne with pregnancy, conveniently forgetting that she was the eyes, and he was the one who had come from nothing. By the time she was 8 months pregnant, Darlene had lost everything: the penthouse, the cars, the life she had built. Wayne had somehow managed to keep all the assets, claiming they were business investments rather than marital property. Her own family's lawyers were fighting back, but legal battles took time. She had been alone, staying in a cramped studio apartment in Queens, working 3 part-time jobs to pay for basic prenatal care, when her water broke 6 weeks early, the night that nearly killed her. Darlene closed her eyes, phantom pain echoing from those 42 hours of labor alone in a city hospital. No epidural, because she couldn't afford it. No hand to hold, no voice offering encouragement. Maya came first, tiny and fighting, then Zoe, quiet and peaceful. River had been breached, complications setting in. Her blood pressure spiked, her heart stopped twice, and for 10 terrifying minutes, doctors thought they would lose both mother and baby. "Ma'am, you need to call someone," the nurse had said afterward, when Darlene was barely conscious, 3 tiny babies in the NICU, fighting for their lives. "You can't do this alone." But she was alone. Wayne had remarried Bethany in a lavish ceremony in the Malda, while Darlene was learning to breastfeed 3 premature babies. Her mother, Judge Elena Hill, had flown in from Washington, D.C., but professional obligations meant she couldn't stay long. Those first 2 years had been hell. 3 babies, no money, no support system, working impossible hours just to afford formula and diapers. Darlene had lost 30 lbs she couldn't afford to lose, survived on coffee and determination, and cried herself to sleep every night in exhaustion and heartbreak. Then Camden Pierce had walked into her life like a guardian angel. She had been working the night shift at an upscale hotel restaurant, balancing plates, while her baby stayed with a neighbor who charged by the hour. Camden had been there for a business dinner, and when she'd slipped on a wet floor, sending a tray of expensive wine crashing to the ground, he hadn't yelled or demanded a manager. He had helped her up, paid for broken bottles, and asked if she was okay. "You look like you're carrying the weight of the world," he had said softly, his blue eyes kind and concerned. "Whatever you're going through, it won't last forever." 2 weeks later, he had returned, asking for her by name, then again and again, never pushing, never demanding anything, just being present. When he'd finally learned about her situation, 3 babies, 3 jobs, an ex-husband who had stolen her life, Camden had done something extraordinary. He had helped her reclaim everything. Camden's connections in tech and finance, combined with his patient guidance and unlimited resources, had helped Darlene build Phoenix Industries from nothing. Her brilliant business mind, sharpened by desperation and fueled by determination, had taken every opportunity he provided and multiplied it tenfold. But more than that, Camden had loved her completely, patiently, beautifully. He had held her when the nightmares came, played with her children like they were his own, and slowly, carefully helped her learn to trust. Again, now standing outside Whitmore Tower, Darlene smiled as she remembered last week's magazine cover. Forbes had featured Wayne as self-made billionaire of the year, detailing his meteoric rise from startup founder to tech mogul. The article had gushed about his natural business instincts, his innovative strategies, his empire built from nothing. Every word had been a lie. Darlene pulled out her phone and scrolled a photo she had saved. Wayne's arrogant smile stared back at her from the glossy cover. posed in his corner office wearing a $10,000 suit every inch successful. CEO, the caption read Larson Building. Tomorrow's world today, building it with my money, my connections, my dreams. Darlene thought, her dark eyes hardening. With purpose, time to collect what you owe me, Wayne. With interest, she had already begun the process. Phoenix Industries had quietly acquired several of Wayne's key clients over the past 6 months. Her mother, now a federal judge, had connections throughout the SEC who were very interested in reviewing some of Wayne's more questionable business practices. And Camden's brother Marcus, an investigative journalist with the Wall Street Journal, was preparing an expose that would shatter Wayne's self-made narrative forever. But the real revenge wouldn't be business or legal. It would be personal. It would be watching Wayne realize that the empire he thought he had built was nothing more than a house of cards, and she held all the wins. Miss Hill James appeared at her elbow. Camden called. The children are getting restless. Maya's practicing her presentation for tomorrow's school fundraiser, and Rivers asking when you're coming up for story time. Darlene's expression softened instantly. Her baby's 7 years old now, brilliant and beautiful and everything good in her world. Wayne had no idea they existed. She had made sure that in his mind she had disappeared completely after the divorce, probably failing and struggling somewhere he didn't have to think about. Tomorrow night, all of that would change. Tell them I'm on my way up, Darlene said, her voice warm with love and anticipation. And James confirmed my attendance at the Whitmore Charity Gala tomorrow evening. Make sure the press knows Phoenix Industries will be making a significant donation. How significant? Ma'am. Darlene's smile was sharp as a blade. $10 million. I want to make sure I have everyone's attention when I make my grand entrance. As she walked toward the elevator that would take her up to her penthouse, to Camden and her children and the life she had built from ashes, Darlene felt a thrill of anticipation course through her veins. Tomorrow night, Wayne's son would see exactly what he had thrown away, and then systematically and beautifully she would take back everything he had stolen from her. The phoenix had risen. Now it was time to burn down the old world and build a better one from its ashes. Chapter 2. Angels and Demons. The grand ballroom sparkled like a fairy tale crystal, chandeliers casting rainbow prisms across marble floors as Manhattans elite glittered in designer gowns and tailored tuxedos. The annual Whitmore Charity Gala represented the social event of the season, where billion-dollar deals were whispered over champagne and hierarchies established with military precision. Darlene stood at the entrance, her hand resting gently on Camden's arm as they surveyed the scene before them. She wore a stunning midnight blue gown by Valentino, the fabric hugging her curves like liquid silk before flowing into an elegant train. Diamonds glittered at her throat and ears. Camden's gifts, given not to impress others but to celebrate the woman he adored. Her natural hair was swept into an elaborate updo that showcased her graceful neck, and her dark skin seemed to glow with an inner radiance that had nothing to do with makeup and everything to do with happiness. Beside her, Camden looked devastating in his custom Tom Ford tuxedo, but what made her feel truly beautiful was the way he looked at her, like she was the only woman in existence. At 34, Camden commanded attention. Wherever he went, tech success had made him a billionaire by 30, but wealth hadn't softened him. The former Navy SEAL still carried himself with military precision, broad shoulders and confident stance, speaking to years of discipline and honor. Yet when he looked at Darlene and her children's steel blue eyes melted with such tenderness it stole her breath. You ready for this, sweetheart? Camden murmured against her ear, his voice warm and reassuring. Once we walk in there, there's no going back. I've been ready for 8 years, Darlene replied softly, turning to look at their children. Maya, Zoe, and River stood beside them, impeccably dressed and absolutely Adorable at 7, they already showed distinct personalities that filled Darlene's heart with pride. Maya wore a sophisticated navy dress matching her serious, intelligent demeanor. She'd inherited Darlene's business mind and could discuss stock portfolios with adults twice her age. Zoe floated in soft pink that complemented her artistic soul, wild curls adorned with tiny flowers. She'd insisted on adding river fierce and spirited like her mother wore bold, red and stood chin raised, ready to conquer the world. Papa Camden, Maya said, adjusting his cufflinks with careful precision, you look very handsome tonight. Mama looks like a princess. Camden's smile was radiant as he crouched down to Maya's level. Thank you, beautiful girl, but you three are the real princesses. Here you're going to steal everyone's hearts tonight, just like we stole yours. Zoe asked with the innocent directness that children possess, making both Darlene and Camden laugh exactly like that. Camden said, pressing a gentle kiss to Zoe's forehead before doing the same to Maya and River. You stole my heart from the very first day I met you. Darlene's throat tightened with emotion as she watched the man she loved with her children. It hadn't always been this easy, this natural. When Camden first entered their lives, the girls had been very protective of their small family unit, but Camden had been patient, never pushing, never trying to replace anyone in their hearts, simply making space for himself with gentle consistency. 2 years ago, after a year of careful courtship and family bonding, Camden had officially adopted the triplets. Darlene would never forget that day in the courthouse, watching him sign the papers that made him their legal father while tears streamed down his face. I'm honored to be your dad, he had whispered each of them afterward, not because biology says I have to be, but because I choose to be every single day. Maya had responded with typical practicality. We choose you too, Papa. Camden, you're the best daddy we could ask for. Zoe had simply climbed into his lap and fallen asleep. The ultimate expression of trust. River had been the most emotional. You're never going to leave us, right? Promise. I promise, little warrior. I'm never going anywhere. We're a family forever. Now, 2 years later, they were more than a family. They were a perfectly synchronized unit built on love, trust, and mutual devotion. Shall we make our entrance? Camden asked, offering Darlene his arm again while the children positioned themselves beside them as they walked into the ballroom. Conversation didn't exactly stop, but it shifted, becoming more hushed and speculative. Phoenix Industries was a relatively new player in Manhattan's elite circles, but Darlene's meteoric rise and mysterious background had made her a fascinating figure, adding Camden Pierce's obvious devotion and 3 gorgeous, well-behaved children, and they were the evening's most intriguing guest. Darlene Hill, a warm voice, called out, and they were approached by Winston Blackwood, the 80-year-old patriarch of one of Manhattan's oldest families. His eyes twinkled with genuine pleasure as he took Darlene's hands in his weathered ones. My dear, you look absolutely radiant. And Camden, good to see you, son. Mr. Blackwood. Darlene smiled. Genuinely, Winston had been one of her first allies when she begun building Phoenix Industries, recognizing her brilliance and offering guidance without condescension. Thank you for the invitation. I'd love you to meet my daughters. The famous triplets. Winston's entire face lit up as he looked down at the children. I've heard so much about you 3 brilliant young ladies. Maya stepped forward with small curtsy that made Winston chuckle. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Blackwood. Thank you for inviting us to your charity event. Mama says you're raising money for children's education programs. Indeed, we are, young lady. Very impressive manners. Zoe offered him a small painting she had made specifically for the evening, a watercolor of 3 flowers growing from the same stem. This is for you, she said shyly. Mama says you like art. Winston accepted the painting with the reverence usually reserved for Priceless masterpieces this is. Absolutely beautiful Miss Zoe, I shall have it framed and hung in my study. River, not to be outdone, handed him a business card she had designed herself with crayons and glitter. I'm River Pierce, and I'm going to be a superhero. When I grow up, this is my qualifications. A business card listed her skills as flying, working on it. Reading martial arts. Papa Camden is teaching me and protecting my family. Winston laughed delightedly, tucking the card into his jacket pocket. Miss River, I believe you're already a superhero. Any young lady who can steal my heart in under 30 seconds clearly has superpowers. As the children charmed Winston and other nearby guests, Darlene felt Camden's hand settle on the small of her back, a gentle, possessive touch that sent warmth cascading through her. You're incredible with them, she murmured, watching him help River with her small purse while simultaneously keeping in eye on Maya's animated conversation with a tech executive. They're incredible kids, Camden replied softly. They make it easy just like their mother. Before Darlene could respond, a shift in the room's energy made her look toward the entrance. Her breath caught as Wayne Larson entered the ballroom. Bethany crossed Larson, clinging to his arm like an expensive accessory. 8 years had changed Wayne, but not necessarily for the better. At 35, he was still handsome, in that polished corporate way. Perfect hair, perfect teeth, perfect tan that spoke of expensive vacations. But there was something hollow about him now, a emptiness behind his smile that even his tailored tuxedo couldn't disguise. He moved through the room with the confidence of a man who believed the world owed him everything, greeting other guests with the calculated charm of someone always working an angle. Bethany, now 29, had evolved from secretary to trophy wife with predictable precision. Her blonde hair was perfectly styled. Her surgically enhanced figure poured into a red dress that screamed desperation for attention, and her smile was as artificial as everything else about her. She surveyed the room like a predator, looking for prey, her eyes calculating net worth and social value with every glance. Darling, Bethany was saying, loudly enough to be overheard, remind me again why we had to come to this boring charity thing. Couldn't we have just written a check and gone to that new restaurant in Soho instead? Wayne's jaw tightened slightly, the only sign that his wife's shallow priorities embarrassed him, because networking is important for business. Bethany, something you'd understand if you. He stopped mid-sentence, his words dying in his throat as his gaze landed on Darlene. Across the room, the effect was immediate and devastating. Wayne's face went completely white, then flushed red as if he'd seen a ghost come to life. His hand gripped his champagne glass so tightly that Darlene was surprised it didn't shatter. Bethany, oblivious to her husband's shock, continued chattering about restaurant reservations and weekend plans, but Wayne wasn't listening. He was staring at Darlene with an expression of such raw hunger and regret that it made her stomach turn. He's looking at me like he's drowning, and I'm the only life preserver in sight, Darlene thought with grim satisfaction. Good, let him drown. Camden, ever perceptive, noticed a shift immediately. His hand tightened protectively on Darlene's waist, and his body language shifted subtly, positioning himself slightly in front of her and the children without making it obvious. Years of military training had taught him to read threats, and right now Wayne Larson was definitely a threat. Maybe not physical, but emotional and psychological. Threats could be just as dangerous. Is that him? Camden asked quietly, his voice carefully neutral, but his eyes hard as steel. That's him, Darlene confirmed, her own voice steady despite the emotions churning in her chest. Across the room, Wayne had finally noticed Camden and the children. His expression shifted from shocked hunger to confused pain as he took in the perfect family picture they presented. Camden's protective stance, the children's obvious comfort and security, Darlene's radiant happiness. It was everything Wayne had thrown away, rebuilt, and perfected without him. Daddy, who is that man staring at us? River asked her, young voice cutting through the adult tension with uncomfortable clarity. At 7, she was old enough to sense when something was wrong, and her protective instincts inherited from her mother were already activating. Camden immediately shifted his attention to River, crouching down to her level. Just someone your mother used to know. Princess, nothing for you to worry about. Papa's here and nothing bad is going to happen to our family, promise, River asked, her small hand reaching for his larger one. Promise, Camden said, firmly pressing a kiss to her knuckles in a gesture so tender that several nearby guests smiled at the display of paternal devotion. Maya, ever observant, had followed the line of tension and spotted Wayne as well. Mama, she said quietly, moving closer to Darlene's side, is that man making you sad? Darlene looked down at her eldest daughter's serious face and felt a fierce surge of maternal love. No, baby girl, he can't make me sad anymore. I have you 3 and Papa Camden. I have everything I need to be happy. Good, Maya said with satisfaction, because you deserve to be happy all the time. Out of the mouths of babes, Darlene thought, her heart swelling with love for her perceptive daughter. The evening progressed with careful choreography. Wayne and Bethany circulating on one side of the ballroom while Darlene's family stayed on the other, but Darlene could feel Wayne's eyes on her, constantly a weight she had once welcomed but now found suffocating. As the charity auction began, Darlene prepared to make her move. She had promised a $10 million donation for a reason when the time came when all eyes were on her and her generosity was the talk of the evening. Wayne would finally understand that the broken woman he had abandoned no longer existed. In her place stood a phoenix risen from the ashes of his betrayal, surrounded by a love more pure and powerful than anything they had ever shared. The war was about to begin. Chapter 3, Collision of Souls. A charity auction was in full swing when Wayne made his move. Darlene had been bidding strategically throughout the evening. $50,000 for a Tuscan villa week, $75,000 for a rare vintage wine, $100,000 for a private Grammy winner concert. Each bid calculated to showcase wealth without seeming ostentatious, building toward the moment that would change everything. Camden stood beside her, his hand resting protectively on her lower back as they watched their children charm everyone around them. Maya was discussing investment portfolios with a hedge fund manager who seemed genuinely impressed by her 7-year-old insights. Zoe had found kindred spirits in a group of art collectors who were cooping over her watercolor sketches. River was regaling a retired general with her plans for a superhero academy where children could learn to protect their families. They're going to rule the world someday, Camden murmured against Darlene's ear, his breath warm and comforting, just like their mother. Darlene smiled, leaning into his solid warmth. They already rule mine. The auctioneer's voice boomed across the ballroom. Ladies and gentlemen, our final item tonight is truly extraordinary. A week-long private island retreat in the Malda, complete with staff yacht and helicopter access. Bidding starts at $1 million. This was at Darlene's moment. She raised her paddle immediately. $1 million, $2 million, called out a pharmaceutical Aries from across the room. $3 million, Darlene responded without hesitation. The bidding war began in earnest, but Darlene had no intention of losing as the price climbed to $5 million. Then 7. The crowd began to thin out, leaving only the most serious biders. When it reached $9 million, only Darlene and one other bidder remained. $9.5 million, the pharmaceutical Aries called out, her voice strained. Darlene stood up. Slowly, every eye in the ballroom focused on her. She could feel Wayne's burning gaze from across the room, could sense the collective intake of breath as everyone waited to see what the mysterious CEO of Phoenix Industries would do. $10 million, Darlene said, clearly, her voice carrying across the stunned silence. And I'd like to donate The retreat back to the charity for next year's auction the ballroom erupted in. Applause and shocked murmurs, $20. Million in one gesture, 10 for the winning bid, and another 10 in the donated value of the retreat. It was the single largest contribution in the gala's 50-year history. Winston Blackwood approached the microphone, his aged face beaming with admiration. Ladies and gentlemen, this extraordinary generosity from Ms. Darlene Hill and Phoenix Industries will fund our children's education programs for the next 5 years. A true angel among us tonight. As the applause continued, Darlene felt a familiar presence behind her ascent that once meant home and now made her stomach clench with remembered pain. Hello, Darlene. Wayne's voice was exactly as she remembered, smooth, confident, with that slight rasp that had once made her knees weak. Now it just made her angry. Camden immediately stepped closer, his military instincts on high alert, but Darlene placed a gentle hand on his arm. It's okay, she murmured. I've got this. She turned, slowly, deliberately, letting Wayne see every inch of the woman she'd become. Where once she'd been soft and trusting, now she was sharp and dangerous. Where once she'd looked at him with adoration, now her dark eyes held nothing but frost. Wayne, she said coolly, as if he were a stranger whose name she barely recalled. How unexpected. Up close, the 8 years showed more clearly. Wayne's eyes were still the same piercing green that had once made her heart race, but now they were shadowed with something that looked like desperation. His jaw was still strong, his smile still devastating when he chose to use it, but there were lines around his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and hollow victories. You look, Wayne started, then stopped, apparently overwhelmed by the transformation before him. Incredible, absolutely incredible. Thank you, Darlene replied with the same tone she might use to acknowledge a compliment from a waiter. I've been well. The understatement of the century hung between them like a blade. Wayne's eyes darted to Camden, who was watching the interaction with the focused intensity of a predator. And you are? Wayne asked, extending his hand with false friendliness. Camden didn't take the offered hand. Cam Pierce, he said flatly, Darlene's fiancé. The word hit Wayne like a physical blow. His face went white, then red, as the implications crashed over him. Not boyfriend, not partner, fiancé. The woman he had thrown away like garbage was engaged to one of the most powerful men in Manhattan. Fiancé, Wayne repeated the word, sounding foreign in his mouth. Congratulations. Thank you, Camden replied, his arm sliding around Darlene's waist in a gesture that was both protective and possessive. We're very happy. Darlene could see the exact moment Wayne noticed the children. His gaze shifted to Maya, Zoe, and River, who were standing close by watching this interaction with the shrewd intelligence that children often possess. Something flickered across Wayne's face, confusion, pain, and something that might have been longing in these beautiful young ladies. Are? Wayne asked, his voice carefully casual. Our daughters, Darlene said, firmly emphasizing the word our while looking directly into Wayne's eyes. Maya, Zoe, and River Pierce. Wayne flinched as if she had slapped him. Pierce, not Hill, not Larson. Pierce. These children, Darlene's children, belong to another man entirely. They're lovely. Wayne managed, his voice hoarse. How old are they? 7, Darlene replied, watching his face carefully. She could see him doing the math, his expression growing more pain with each passing second. 7 years old, born after he had left her. Mama, River interrupted, stepping forward with the fearless confidence that was her trademark. Who is this man? Wayne's breath caught as he looked down at River. There was something about her fierce little face, the determined set of her jaw, the way she positioned herself protectively in front of her mother, that hit him like a lightning bolt. She looked like, this is Mr. Larson, Darlene said smoothly. An old acquaintance he was just leaving, but Wayne couldn't move. He was staring at River with an expression of growing wonder and horror the dark, hair the strong, jawline the stubborn. Tilt of her chin, it was like looking at himself in miniature. Actually, Wayne said, his voice gaining strength. I was hoping we could talk privately. There's so much I want to say to you, Darlene, so much I need to explain. There's nothing to explain, Darlene, replied her voice like ice, and nothing to discuss. The past is the past, Wayne. I've moved on, but I haven't, Wayne said desperately, stepping closer. I've regretted leaving you every single day for 8 years. It was the biggest mistake of my life when I saw you tonight looking so beautiful, so successful. I realized that I never stopped loving you. The words hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Camden's entire body tensed, his hand moving protectively to Darlene's hip. The children looked confused and slightly alarmed by the intensity of emotion crackling between the adults. How romantic! A sharp voice cut through the tension. Bethany had appeared at Wayne's side, her artificial smile not quite hiding the venom in her eyes. Aren't you going to introduce me to your old friend? Darling, Wayne looked like he would rather eat glass. Bethany, this is Darlene Hill. Darlene, my wife. Bethany, oh, Bethy's eyes widened with fake surprise. The ex-wife, how fascinating. I've heard so much about you. I'm sure you have, Darlene replied smoothly, though I suspect most of it was fiction. Bethy's smile turned predatory. Well, aren't you the success story? I remember Wayne mentioning that you were struggling after the divorce, single mother, working multiple jobs, barely making ends meet. It's amazing how much can change in a few years. The insult was delivered with surgical precision, designed to humiliate and diminish, but Darlene had faced down boardrooms full of ruthless executives and Senate subcommittees investigating corporate fraud. One bitter trophy wife was hardly a challenge. You're absolutely right, Darlene said with a smile that could cut diamonds. Amazing how quickly things can turn around when you're not being held back by dead weight. The barb hit its mark. Wayne winced visibly, while Bethy's face flushed red with anger. Ladies and gentlemen, Winston Blackwood's voice boomed over the sound system. If I could have your attention for one final announcement. The ballroom quieted as all eyes turned to the stage where Winston stood with a massive check made out to the Children's Education Foundation, thanks to the extraordinary generosity of Ms. Darlene Hill in Phoenix Industries. We have raised a record-breaking $27 million tonight, but more than that, we have witnessed the kind of philanthropy that changes lives and builds futures. Ms. Hill, would you care to say a few words? Darlene glanced at Camden, who nodded encouragingly. She kissed each of her daughters on the forehead, whispered something that made them giggle, and walked toward the stage with the grace of a queen. As she took the microphone, every person in the ballroom was focused on her. She was luminous under the spotlights, powerful and beautiful and completely in control. Thank you, Mr. Blackwood, she began, her voice carrying clearly across the silent room. 8 years ago, I learned that sometimes life strips everything away, but I also learned that when you have nothing left to lose, you become capable of extraordinary things. Her eyes found Wayne in the crowd, and for a moment they were the only two people in the room tonight. I'm reminded that our greatest failures often become foundation for our greatest successes. Sometimes those who hurt us most end up giving us the most precious gifts, the chance to discover who we really are and what we're truly capable of achieving. She paused, letting the words sink in. The children we're helping tonight deserve to know that their circumstances don't define their potential, that they can rise above any betrayal, overcome any obstacle, and build something beautiful from even the most painful experiences. Because sometimes when someone shows you their true nature, the best thing you can do is thank them for setting you free. The applause was thunderous, but Darlene wasn't finished. She looked directly at Wayne as she delivered her final line. After all, you can't build a phoenix without first burning everything to the ground. As she left the stage, Darlene felt the weight of Wayne's stare like a physical thing. She had just declared war in the most public way possible, and everyone in that room, including Wayne, knew it. The collision of their souls was complete. Now the real battle could begin. Chapter. For the children, he never knew 3 days. After the charity gala, Wayne sat in his corner office on Whitmore Towers 15th floor staring at a photograph from Manhattan Society magazine. The image showed Darlene presenting the oversized check to Winston Blackwood, but Wayne's eyes weren't on his ex-wife. They were fixed on 3 little girls standing beside Camden Pierce in the background. River Pierce, Maya Pierce, Zoe Pierce. 7 years old. Wayne's hands trembled slightly as he held the magazine closer, studying every detail of their faces. River's determined jawline that matched his own, Maya's serious expression that reminded him of Darlene when she was focused on business, Zoe's artistic soul that seemed to shine through her gentle smile as children. The certainty hit him like a physical blow. Even without DNA tests or birth certificates, the timeline was perfect. They would have been born roughly 6 months after he'd abandoned Darlene. The resemblances were undeniable, especially in River, who looked like his clone with longer hair, and Darlene's beautiful dark skin. The intercom buzzed, startling him from his obsessive study. "Mr. Len, your wife is here to see you." Wayne quickly shoved the magazine into his desk drawer. Sent her, and Bethany swept into his office wearing a designer dress that cost more than most people's monthly salary, her blonde hair perfectly styled despite the fact that it was barely 10 a.m. She had the particular energy of someone who had been shopping and spending his money, which usually irritated Wayne, but today barely registered. "Darling," Bethany purred, settling into the chair across from his desk with practiced grace. "I've been thinking about Saturday night. That charity thing was such a bore, but did you see how desperate that ex-wife of yours was for attention? $20 million. So obvious. Wayne found himself defending Darlene before he could stop himself. She donated to charity. How was that obvious? Bethy's perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose. "Oh, please, Wayne." It was clearly a power play. She was trying to show everyone how rich she is now. Probably borrowed it from that boyfriend of hers, fiancé. Wayne corrected automatically. "Whatever." Bethany waved a dismissive hand. "The point is, she was obviously trying to make you jealous. Did you see how she kept looking at you during her little speech? She still hung up on you, darling. It's actually kind of pathetic." Wayne stared at his wife in amazement. Had they been at the same event, Darlene had barely acknowledged his existence, except to make it clear that she'd moved on completely. If anything, she had looked at him with the kind of cold dismissal usually reserved for particularly annoying insects. "I don't think that's what was happening," Wayne said slowly. Bethany leaned forward, her eyes lighting up with the cruel excitement of someone about to deliver gossip. "Oh, but wait until you hear what I found out about those children of hers. I did a little digging yesterday." Wayne's entire body went rigid. "What kind of digging?" "Well, you know how I am with social media investigation," Bethany said proudly. "Turns out that Camden Pierce isn't their biological father. He adopted them 2 years ago, but there's no record of who the real father is. The birth certificates are sealed, which usually means something scandalous. Maybe she doesn't even know who the father is. Wouldn't that be delicious?" Wayne felt sick, the casual cruelty in Bethy's voice, the way she was talking about his children. She didn't even know where, has made him want to throw her out of his office. When had she become so vicious? Had she always been this way and he just hadn't noticed? "That's enough," Wayne said firmly. "I don't want to hear any more gossip about Darlene or her family." Bethany looked shocked. "Her family?" "Wayne, what's gotten into you? Saturday night you couldn't stop staring at her, and now you're defending her honor like some kind of knight in shining armor. She's your ex-wife, not some innocent maiden. She's the mother of 3 children. Wayne snapped, children who don't deserve to be the subject of your petty gossip. Since when do you care about other people's children? Bethany shot back, her mask of sweetness finally slipping. You've made it perfectly clear that you never want kids of our own in. Fact you've been downright hostile about. The idea Wayne opened his mouth to respond, then close it. She was right. He had been adamant about not wanting children, with Bethany always claiming that kids would interfere with his business goals and lifestyle, but the truth was more complicated every time Bethany brought up having babies. All he could think about was the children he might have had with Darlene, the family he had thrown away. This conversation is over, Wayne said, turning back to his computer. I have work to do. Bethany stood up, her face flushed with anger. Fine, but don't think I don't know what's happening here, Wayne. You're having some kind of midlife crisis fantasy about your perfect ex-wife and her perfect little family. But let me remind you of something. You chose me, you left her for me, and I won't be discarded just because you're feeling nostalgic after she left, slamming the door behind her. Wayne pulled the magazine back out of his drawer. This time he studied the photo more carefully, focusing on the family dynamics visible in the background image. Camden had his hand on River's shoulder while she showed him something in a small notebook, probably her superhero plans. Maya was standing close to Darlene, their heads bent together as they whispered about something that made them both smile. Zoe was holding Camden's other hand, her face turned up toward him with complete trust and adoration. It was a picture of a perfect family, a family that should have been his. By lunchtime, Wayne had made a decision that would have horrified his rational mind if he'd been thinking clearly. He left his office and drove to the exclusive private school that he discovered the children attended, information that had cost him a significant bribe to a private investigator. But money was no object when it came to learning about his daughter's Whitmore Preparatory Academy. Was exactly the kind of school Wayne had dreamed of sending his children to. Someday, ivy-covered brick buildings, perfectly manicured grounds, and the kind of security that ensured only the children of Manhattan's elite walked these halls. The fact that Doreen could afford to send 3 children here simultaneously was another reminder of just how successful she had become. Wayne parked across the street and waited. He told himself he just wanted to see them again, to confirm what he already knew in his heart. He wasn't planning to approach them or interfere with their lives. He just needed to see his children at 3:15 p.m. The school doors opened and students began streaming out. Wayne's heart nearly stopped when he spotted them immediately. 3 little girls walking together toward the pickup area. Maya carried what looked like a science project. Zoe had a paint-splattered smock over her uniform, and River was animatedly explaining something that required extensive hand gestures. They were beautiful, perfect, everything he had lost and didn't even know existed. A familiar figure appeared in the pickup line. Camden Pierce, driving a black Range Rover and wearing casual clothes that somehow made him look even more devastatingly handsome than he had. In a tuxedo, Wayne watched with growing resentment as his children's faces lit up at the sight of the man they called Father, Papa Camden. River broke away from her sisters and ran toward the car, launching herself into Camden's arms with complete trust that he would catch her. Camden spun her around, laughing at whatever she was telling him before, setting her down and crouching to her level to give her his full attention. Maya and Zoe approached more calmly, but their faces showed the same joy and love that Rivers did. Wayne watched Camden help each girl into the car, making sure their seat belts were properly fastened, listening to their chatter about their day, responding to their questions with patience and genuine interest. It was everything Wayne had imagined doing with his own children someday, and Camden was doing it with natural ease and obvious love. As the Range Rover pulled away from the school, Wayne made another impulsive Decision, he followed, and the drive led to Central Park, where Camden parked near. The playground Wayne watched from his car as his family, because that's what they were, he realized with painful clarity. Spent the afternoon playing. Together, Camden pushed Zoe on the swings while Maya showed off her monkey bar skills and River challenged other children to races around the playground. It was domestic and perfect, and everything Wayne had never appreciated when he'd had the chance to build it himself. His phone buzzed with a text from Bethany. Dinner at Cipriani tonight with the Hendersons. Don't be late. Wayne stared at the message, then at the scene in front of him. Camden was now helping all three girls build an elaborate sand castle, his expensive clothes forgotten as he knelt in the dirt beside them. Their laughter carried across the playground, bright and joyful and completely unself-conscious. Wayne deleted Bethy's text without responding. For 2 hours, he watched his children play with the man who had taken his place in their lives. Camden was everything. Wayne hadn't been patient, present, completely focused on the children's happiness rather than his own ambitions. When Zoe scraped her knee on the slide, Camden cleaned and bandaged it with supplies from what was obviously a well-stocked first aid kit in his car. When Maya got frustrated with a math problem she was working on, Camden sat beside her on a bench and helped her work through it step by step. When River challenged him to a race, Camden ran with her, letting her win, but making it look like genuine competition. As the sun began to set, Wayne watched Camden gather up their things while the girls helped clean up the playground area. Clearly a family rule about leaving places better than they found them before they left. Camden pulled all three girls into a group hug that made Wayne's chest ache with jealousy, and lost that night. Wayne couldn't focus on dinner with the Hendersons. He barely heard Bethy's complaints about the restaurant service or her plans for their upcoming vacation to Monaco. All he could think about were three little girls who called another man Papa and had no idea their biological father was desperately watching them from the shadows. When they got home to their penthouse, the penthouse that Darlene's money had originally purchased, Wayne went straight to his study and opened his laptop. It was time to learn everything he could about the children he had never known existed, the children who should have been his but belonged to Camden Pierce. Instead, the children who represented everything he had lost when he'd chosen ambition over love and shallow attraction over the deep connection he'd share with their mother, his beautiful daughters who were growing up without him, loved by a better man than he had ever been. Wayne's obsession had officially begun. Chapter 5, Truth in Innocent Eyes. The private investigator's report landed on Wayne's desk at exactly 9:47 a.m. on a Thursday that would shatter everything. The manila envelope was thicker than expected, and his hands trembled as he broke the seal. For 3 weeks he'd been paying Davidson investigations an exorbitant sum to uncover the truth about Darlene's children, and now that truth lay literally in his hands. He spread the documents across his mahogany desk, his heart pounding as he began to read birth certificates, hospital records, medical files, financial records from those early years when Darlene had struggled as a single mother. The first document confirmed what Wayne already knew in his soul. Maya Hill, Zoe Hill, and River Hill had been born on March 15th, 8 years ago at Mount Si Hospital. Triplets born 6 weeks premature to Darlene Hill, age 24. Father listed as unknown, but the hospital records told a different story. Wayne's name appeared throughout Darlene's medical files as emergency contact insurance beneficiary next of kin. During her pregnancy, she'd listed him as the father on all preliminary paperwork. Only after their divorce was finalized, while she was 7 months pregnant, had his name been systematically removed and replaced with unknown. Wayne's breathing became labored as he read the birth summary. Emergency cesarean due to preeclampsia and fetal distress. Patient suffered cardiac arrest During delivery, resuscitated after 4 minutes, babies born critically premature, requiring immediate NICU care for minutes. Darlene had been dead for 4 minutes while giving birth to their children alone in a hospital room because Wayne had been too busy honeymooning with Bethany to care what happened to the woman he'd abandoned. The financial records painted an even more devastating picture. In the months after the children's birth, Darlene had worked 3 jobs while caring for premature triplets. Her credit cards had been maxed out paying for specialized formula, medications, and childcare. There were eviction notices, utility shutoffs, and medical bills that stretched into 6 figures, all while Wayne had been living in luxury with Bethany, using Darlene's trust fund money to expand his business empire. But it was the photographs that destroyed him completely. The investigator had obtained security footage from the hospital during those early weeks. Wayne stared at grainy black and white images of Darlene sleeping in Nika chairs, her head pillowed on her arms as she maintained vigil beside 3 tiny incubators. Other photos showed her walking the halls at all hours, pumping breast milk in hospital rooms, meeting with doctors who delivered news that made her shoulders shake with silent sobs. She had been completely alone. The final photograph was a professional portrait taken when the babies were 6 months old. Darlene's first family photo. She looked exhausted but radiant, holding 3 healthy, beautiful babies who had survived against the odds. Maya in a little yellow dress, Zoe in pink, River in purple. The love in Darlene's eyes was unmistakable, but so was the haunted look of someone who had endured trauma that would mark her forever. Wayne's phone rang, jarring him from his horrified study of the documents. The caller ID showed it was his assistant, but Wayne couldn't bring himself to answer. His entire world was crashing down around him as the magnitude of his betrayal became crystal clear. He had 3 daughters, beautiful, brilliant daughters, who had nearly died because he hadn't been there when they needed him most. Daughters who had grown up in poverty while he lived in luxury. Daughters who called another man Papa because their real father had abandoned them before they were even born. The intercom buzzed. "Mr. Larson, Miss Hill is here to see you. She says it's urgent." Wayne's blood turned to ice. Darlene was here now. He quickly gathered up the investigators' files, shoving them into his desk drawer. With shaking hands, "Send her in," he managed to say when Darlene walked through his office door. Wayne was struck anew by her transformation. She wore a perfectly tailored black suit that screamed power and sophistication. Her hair pulled back in a severe bun that somehow made her look even more beautiful, but it was her eyes that made Wayne's breath catch. They were filled with a cold fury that he had never seen before. "Hello, Wayne," she said, her voice dangerously quiet as she closed the door behind her. "I think it's time we had a conversation." "Darlene, I sit down," she commanded, and something in her tone made Wayne obey immediately. "Do you know why I'm here?" Wayne's mouth was dry as sand. "I know." Darlene walked to his desk and placed a single photograph on the polished surface. It was a picture of Wayne sitting in his car outside Whitmore Preparatory Academy, clearly taken with a telephoto lens. "My children's school has excellent security," Darlene said conversationally. "They take photos of anyone who seems to be lingering in the vicinity." Imagine my surprise when the head of security showed me this picture and asked if I knew why my ex-husband was stalking my daughters. Wayne stared at the photograph, his face burning with shame. "I wasn't stalking them. I wanted to see them." "See them," Darlene repeated slowly. "And why exactly would you want to see my children?" "Wayne, as far as you knew, they had nothing to do with you. The trap was perfectly laid." And Wayne walked right into it. "Because they're mine," he whispered, the words torn from his soul. "They're my daughters." Darlene's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. "Ah, so you know." "How long?" Wayne asked desperately. "How Long have you known that I figured it. Out I've been waiting for you to figure. It out since the charity gala, Darlene replied, settling into the chair across from his desk with predatory grace. It only took you 3 weeks, I'm honestly surprised it took that long. River looks exactly like you did at that age, Wayne's hands clenched and the fists widen. You tell me when you found out you were pregnant, why didn't you tell me they were mine? The question seemed to hang in the air like a loaded weapon when Darlene spoke. Her voice was so quiet that Wayne had to strain to hear her. I did tell you what I told you I was pregnant with your children, Darlene said, her composure beginning to crack. I told you we were having triplets. I told you they were yours. Do you remember what you said to me? Wayne's memory flashed back to that horrible day in their apartment. Darlene sitting on their couch with tears streaming down her face, ultrasound pictures scattered on the coffee table. You said, Darlene continued, her voice growing stronger and more furious with each word, that you couldn't be tied down by this, that you were building something important and couldn't be trapped by babies, that I was trying to manipulate you into staying with a pregnancy you probably planned. I didn't mean. You said. Darlene's voice rose to a shout that even if the babies were yours, you didn't want them. You signed away your parental rights as part of the divorce settlement. Wayne, you legally abandoned 3 unborn children because you thought Bethany was a better investment. Wayne felt like he was drowning. I was young, I was scared, I made a mistake. Darlene was on her feet now, her carefully controlled facade completely shattered. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk from the store. Wayne, a mistake is being late for dinner. What you did was choose to destroy 4 lives because you decided we weren't worth the inconvenience. I know, and I'm sorry. Darlene laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. Do you want to know what sorry looks like? Wayne, sorry is giving birth to 3 babies 6 weeks early because the stress of your betrayal nearly killed me. Sorry is coding on the delivery table because my blood pressure spiked to stroke level. Sorry is waking up in the ICU to find out that your daughters might not survive their first week of life. Wayne's face was white as paper. They almost died. River stopped breathing twice in her first week. Darlene continued relentlessly. Maya had bleeding in her brain. Zoe couldn't regulate her body temperature. I spent 6 weeks sleeping in hospital chairs, pumping breast milk every 2 hours, and praying to God that my babies would live to see their first month. I didn't know because you didn't care to know. Darlene slammed her hand on his desk, making Wayne jump. You were too busy playing house with your secretary to give a damn about the family you destroyed. Where were your parents, your family? Surely they helped. My father had just been diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. Darlene said bitterly. My mother was managing his care while trying to maintain her judicial career. They did what they could, but I was essentially alone with 3 critically ill infants. Wayne buried his face in his hands. Jesus, Darlene, I'm so sorry. If I had known, if you had known what. Darlene's voice was ice cold again. You would have swooped in to play hero. You would have abandoned your new wife to help the woman you cheated on and discarded. Don't insult my intelligence. Wayne, I would have done something. I would have helped financially, at least. With what money? Darlene asked sarcastically. The money you stole from my trust fund. The money you used to build your precious empire while I was working 3 jobs and choosing between buying formula and paying the electric bill. Wayne looked up at her in confusion. I didn't steal from your trust fund. That money was invested in the business, our business that you kept entirely for yourself. Darlene corrected. Our business that was built on my family's connections and my financial foundation. Our business that you claimed as your sole creation the moment you decided I was disposable. The truth was starting to sink in, and Wayne felt sick. The Forbes article, the self-made billionaire story, was complete fiction. Darlene finished, built on my money using my family's connections, and you've spent 8 years taking credit For my contributions tell me, Wayne, how much of Larson Enterprises would exist without that initial $50 million from my trust fund. Wayne couldn't answer because they both knew the truth. His entire empire had been built on Darlene's foundation, and he had spent years convincing himself that his own brilliance had been the key to his success. I want to know them, Wayne said desperately. I want to be there, Father. Darlene's laugh was bitter and broken. You gave up that right 8 years ago. Camden Pierce is their father. He was there for their first steps, their first words, their first day of school. He's the one who sits up with them when they're sick, helps them with homework, and tells them bedtime stories. You're nothing to them but a stranger who's been following them around like a stalker. But I'm their biological father. Biology doesn't make your father, Wayne. Darlene's voice cracked with emotion. Love makes you a father. Sacrifice makes you a father. Showing up every single day makes you a father. Camden earned the right to be called Papa by 3 little girls who needed a dad. You forfeited that right when you chose your own selfish desires over your family's welfare. Wayne stood up, reaching toward her desperately. It doesn't have to be too late. I can change. I could be the father they deserve. We could try again. Darlene stared at him in absolute amazement. There is no we, Wayne. There will never be a we again. I'm marrying Camden Pierce in 6 months, and he's adopting my daughters legally. They'll be Pierce children in every way that matters, but they're mine. No, Darlene said firmly. They're mine. I earned them through 42 hours of labor, 3 years of sleepless nights, and 8 years of being their mother. You contributed some DNA and then disappeared. That doesn't make them yours. Wayne felt his world collapsing around him. Please, Darlene, give me a chance to prove I've changed. Let me be part of their lives. Away. You gave me a chance when I begged you not to leave. Darlene asked quietly, the way you considered your pregnant wife's feelings when you were your secretary in our bed. The crude words hit Wayne like a physical blow, partly because Darlene never swore, and partly because they forced him to confront the brutal reality of what he had done. I was different then, Wayne pleaded. I'm not the same man who hurt you. You're right. Darlene agreed, moving toward the door. You're worse. The man who left me was at least honest about being selfish. This version of you wants to assuage his guilt by disrupting the lives of 3 innocent children who are perfectly happy with a family they have. She paused at the door, her hand on the handle. Stay away from my daughters, Wayne. I won't ask again. And if I don't, Wayne asked, desperation making him reckless. Darlene turned back to him with a smile that was pure predator. Then you'll discover exactly how much power a woman scorn can wield when she has nothing left to lose. I've spent 8 years building an empire for one purpose, to make sure you can never hurt my family again. Don't test me. As the door closed behind her, Wayne collapsed into his chair, staring at the photograph she had left on his desk. Him sitting in his car like a pathetic stalker, watching the children he had abandoned for the first time in 8 years. Wayne Larson understood the true cost of his choices, and for the first time in his life, he realized that some mistakes could never be undone. His daughters were lost to him forever, and it was entirely his own fault. Chapter 6. Empire built on ashes. The war room at Phoenix Industries resembled something from a military thriller. Floor to ceiling windows offered panoramic Manhattan views, but Darlene's attention focused on wall-mounted screens displaying real-time financial data, news feeds, and corporate intelligence reports. 3 weeks had passed since her confrontation with Wayne, and now came time to systematically dismantle everything he'd built on her stolen dreams foundation. Camden stood beside her, his tablet, displaying legal documents that would soon become Wayne's worst nightmare. At 34, Camden had orchestrated hostile takeovers worth billions, but he had never seen anyone plan a corporate assassination with the precision and cold fury that Darlene was demonstrating. The SEC filing goes live in 30 minutes. Camden said, his voice steady and supportive once its public wanes. Going to know this isn't just about hurt. Feelings, this is about Justice. Darlene nodded, her dark eyes fixed on a photograph of Wayne from last week's business journal. He looked confident, successful, completely unaware that his empire was about to crumble. Good. I want him to understand that every single thing he thinks he's accomplished was built on stolen ground. Mama Maya's voice came from the doorway, and Darlene turned to see her eldest daughter standing there in her school uniform, her serious expression even more pronounced than usual. Ms. Rodriguez said I could come up after I finish my homework. Are you really going to destroy that man's company? Darlene's war room demeanor softened instantly as she knelt to Maya's level. Her daughter was precocious, beyond her 7 years, with an intelligence that sometimes startled adults and a curiosity about business that rivaled most MBA students. I'm going to correct an injustice, sweetheart, Darlene explained carefully. Sometimes when people take things that don't belong to them, you have to find a way to make things fair again, like when Tommy Morrison stole Zoe's art supplies and the teacher made him give them back. Maya asked exactly like that. Camden interjected, moving to join them. Except this is grown-up stealing, and it requires grown-up consequences. Maya nodded gravely. Will it hurt him? The question hung in the air for a moment. Darlene considered lying, but she had always been honest with her children about the complexities of the world. Yes, she said finally, it will hurt him, but sometimes people need to experience consequences for their actions, even if those consequences are painful. Good, Maya said with startling intensity. He made you cry. I remember when we were little, you used to cry at night when you thought we were sleeping. Nobody should make our mama cry. Darlene's heart clenched at the realization that her daughters had been aware of her pain, even when she thought she had hidden it. That's all in the past now, baby girl. We have our family. We have Papa Camden, and we're never going to let anyone hurt us again. Maya hugged her tightly, then looked up at Camden. Papa, will you teach me about hostile takeovers after dinner? I want to understand how Mama is going to win. Camden laughed to sound warm and proud. I think we should start with regular math homework first, princess, but yes, I'll explain some business concepts after you finish your regular schoolwork. As Maya skipped back to the family area of the penthouse, Darlene's phone rang. Judge Elena Hill's name appeared on the screen, and Darlene answered immediately. Mama, Darlene said, her voice warming with genuine affection for the woman who had supported her through the darkest period of her life. Baby girl. Elena's voice was crisp and professional, but Darlene could hear the underlying satisfaction. I wanted to let you know that the SEC has received our preliminary documentation. Your friend at the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit was very interested in the evidence of trust fund misappropriation. How interested? Darlene asked, putting the phone on speaker so Camden could hear. Interested enough to open a formal investigation. Elena replied, it seems that using someone's trust fund as startup capital without proper documentation and then claiming the resulting business as solely your own creation could constitute several federal crimes. Camden whistled low. Securities fraud, tax evasion, possibly wire fraud if he used any electronic transfers. All of the above. Elena confirmed, plus Wayne's tax returns for the past 8 years show him claiming the full value of the business without acknowledging any debt to Darlene's trust. That's fraud on multiple levels. Darlene felt a grim satisfaction settle in her chest. How long before they act? The investigation could take months, but the preliminary asset freeze could happen within days. Once that begins, Wayne's going to find it very difficult to maintain his current lifestyle. After ending the call with her mother, Darlene turned her attention to the other screens in her war room. Marcus Pierce, Camden's brother, appeared via video conference from his office at the Wall Street Journal. Darlene, the expose is ready to go, Marcus said, his journalist excitement evident even through the computer screen. I verified Wayne's entire origin story, and it's A. House of Cards, the self-made billionaire. Narrative falls apart completely when you trace the initial funding back to your trust. What's the headline? Camden asked with brotherly pride to fraud. Behind the fortune, how Wayne Larson built his empire on stolen dreams. Marcus replied, it's going to be front page tomorrow with a full investigation. Spread inside, I've got documentation of the trust fund transfers, interviews with early employees who remember Darlene being instrumental in the company's launch, and quotes from business professors about the legal implications of claiming someone else's investment as your own success. Darlene nodded approvingly, and the human interest angle. I focus on the systemic problem of powerful men taking credit for women's contributions. Marcus explained. Wayne becomes a case study in how easy it is to erase a woman's role in business success, especially when divorce and betrayal are involved. It's going to resonate with a lot of readers who've seen similar situations. As the video call ended, Camden moved to stand behind Darlene's chair's hands, settling on her shoulders in a gesture of support and solidarity. You know, there's no going back after this, he said gently. Once these dominoes start falling, Wayne's world is going to collapse completely. Good, Darlene replied without hesitation. He destroyed my world 8 years ago while I was pregnant and vulnerable. Now he gets to experience what it feels like to lose everything while everyone watches. And Bethany, Darlene's smile was sharp. Bethany will abandon him the moment his credit cards stop working. Women like her don't stick around for the cleanup phase. As if summoned by their conversation, Darlene's phone buzzed with a notification from her surveillance team. Wayne's marriage was already showing cracks. He had been sleeping in his office for the past week, and Bethany had been seen at lunch with her divorce attorney. Meanwhile, across town in Wayne's corner office, the first domino was about to fall. Wayne stared at his computer screen in growing horror as the SEC filing notification appeared in his inbox. Phoenix Industries was formally alleging that Larson Enterprises had been built using misappropriated funds, and they had documentation dating back 8 years to prove it. His hands shook as he opened the filing. Every detail of his company's founding was laid out with surgical precision. The $50 million investment from Darlene's trust that had never been properly documented as a loan, the gradual transfer of assets into his sole name during their marriage, the systematic removal of Darlene's name from all corporate documents following their divorce. This can't be happening, Wayne muttered, scrolling through page after page of evidence that painted him as a fraud and a thief. His intercom buzzed. Mr. Larson, there are several reporters in the lobby asking for a statement about something called stolen dreams. Should I send them away? Wayne's blood turned to ice. If reporters were already here, that meant the story was about to break publicly. His reputation, his business relationships, his entire carefully constructed image was about to be destroyed. Don't let anyone up, Wayne said frantically, and get my lawyer on the phone immediately. But even as he spoke, Wayne knew it was too late. Darlene had planned this assault with military precision, and she had the resources to execute it flawlessly. The SEC investigation would freeze his assets, the media exposure would destroy his reputation, and the legal challenges would cost millions he might not have access to by evening. Wayne's nightmare had become reality. The Wall Street Journal article was devastating, painting him as a man who had built his fortune on the back of a woman he betrayed. His phone rang constantly with calls from investors, business partners, and board members demanding explanations, but it was the call from Bethany that delivered the final blow. Wayne, her voice was cold and businesslike, nothing like the sultry tones she usually used. I've been talking to my attorney, and we think it's best if we separate while you deal with these allegations. Separate? Wayne couldn't believe what he was hearing. Bethany, this is all just a misunderstanding. The charges won't stick. The charges. Bethy's laugh was bitter. Wayne, I don't care about the charges. I care about my reputation and my future. I can't be married to someone who's being investigated for fraud, but I love you. Wayne said desperately, the words feeling hollow even as he spoke them. Love doesn't pay for penthouses and designer clothes, Bethany replied bluntly, and if you're about to lose everything, then I need to protect myself. I'm moving out tonight. The line went dead, leaving Wayne alone in his office with the wreckage of his life spread across his desk in the form of legal documents and newspaper clippings across town. Darlene was tucking her daughters into bed, reading them a story about a phoenix that rose from the ashes, stronger and more beautiful than before. Camden sat beside them, adding voices for different characters and making the girls giggle with his dramatic interpretations. Mama River said sleepily as Darlene kissed her good night. Did the phoenix hurt the people who tried to burn her? No, sweetheart, Darlene replied softly. The phoenix didn't need to hurt anyone. She just showed them that they couldn't destroy something that was meant to soar. As Darlene and Camden left the children's room, Camden pulled her into his arms, his love and admiration evident in every touch. How does it feel? He asked, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. Getting justice after all these years, like finally being able to breathe again, Darlene replied honestly, but this is just the beginning. Wayne's going to lose everything, and he's going to understand exactly what he threw away when he chose greed over love. Outside their penthouse windows, Manhattan glittered like a battlefield where Darlene Hill had just won the first major victory in a war 8 years in the making. The empire built on ashes was about to crumble, and from its ruins, justice would finally rise. Chapter 7a. Father's desperation. Wayne's Portia felt like a prison as he sat in Whitmore Preparatory Academy's parking lot, watching other parents collect their children with casual ease. People whose lives weren't imploding. 2 weeks had passed since the SEC investigation became public, and Wayne's world crumbled faster than he could comprehend. Assets frozen, business under federal investigation, Bethany filing for divorce. But none of that mattered compared to the 3 little girls about to walk out those doors as daughters who had no idea their biological father was desperately watching from the shadows. At 3:15 p.m., the school doors opened. Wayne's heart clenched when he spotted them. Maya with her serious expression, Zoe with paint stains on her uniform, River practically bouncing as she animatedly told her sister something, requiring extensive hand gestures. They were beautiful, perfect, everything he had lost and never known he'd been missing. Camden's Range Rover pulled into the pickup lane, and Wayne watched his daughters' faces light up like Christmas morning. River broke into a run, launching herself into Camden's arms with complete trust. Papa, Camden, River's voice carried across the parking lot. We're going to build rockets next week, and I want mine purple with silver flames. Camden spun her around, laughing. Purple with silver flame sounds perfect, little warrior. Maya stepped forward with a frown. Papa, there's a man in the parking lot who's been watching us. Mrs. Henderson asked me if I knew who he was. Wayne's blood turned to ice. A 7-year-old daughter had not only noticed his surveillance but reported it to school officials. Camden's demeanor shifted immediately, military training evident as he assessed threats. His eyes scanned until they landed on Wayne's Portia. Girls, Camden said calmly, get in the car, seat belts on. Is everything okay? Papa, Zoe asked, sensing the tension. Everything's fine, sweetheart, Camden assured her, reaching for his phone as the children climbed into the Range Rover. Wayne made an impulsive decision. Instead of driving away, he got out and walked toward Camden's vehicle. Mr. Pierce, Wayne called out desperation. Bethany will abandon him the moment his credit card stopped working. Women like her don't stick around for the cleanup phase. As if summoned by their conversation, Darlene's phone buzzed with a notification from her surveillance team. Wayne's marriage was already showing cracks. He had been sleeping in his office for the past week, and Bethany had been seen at lunch with her divorce attorney. Meanwhile, across town in Wayne's corner office, the first domino was about to fall. Wayne stared at his computer screen in growing horror as the SEC filing notification appeared in his inbox. Phoenix Industries was formally alleging that Larson Enterprises had been built using misappropriated funds, and they had documentation dating back 8 years to prove it. His hands shook as he opened the filing. Every detail of his company's founding was laid out with surgical precision. The $50 million investment from Darlene's trust that had never been properly documented as a loan, the gradual transfer of assets into his sole name during their marriage, the systematic removal of Darlene's name from all corporate documents following their divorce. This can't be happening, Wayne muttered, scrolling through page after page of evidence that painted him as a fraud and a thief. As intercom buzzed, "Mr. Larson, there are several reporters in the lobby asking for a statement about something called stolen dreams. Should I send them away?" Wayne's blood turned to ice. If reporters were already here, that meant the story was about to break publicly. His reputation, his business relationships, his entire carefully constructed image was about to be destroyed. "Don't let anyone up," Wayne said frantically, "and get my lawyer on the phone immediately." But even as he spoke, Wayne knew it was too late. Darlene had planned this assault with military precision, and she had the resources to execute it flawlessly. The SEC investigation would freeze his assets, the media exposure would destroy his reputation, and the legal challenges would cost millions he might not have access to by evening. Wayne's nightmare had become reality. The Wall Street Journal article was devastating, painting him as a man who had built his fortune on the back of a woman he betrayed. His phone rang constantly with calls from investors, business partners, and board members demanding explanations, but it was the call from Bethany that delivered the final blow. Wayne, her voice was cold and businesslike, nothing like the sultry tones she usually used. "I've been talking to my attorney, and we think it's best if we separate while you deal with these allegations." Separate? Wayne couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Bethany, this is all just a misunderstanding. The charges won't stick." "The charges?" Bethy's laugh was bitter. "Wayne, I don't care about the charges. I care about my reputation and my future. I can't be married to someone who's being investigated for fraud." "But I love you," Wayne said desperately, the words feeling hollow even as he spoke them. "Love doesn't pay for penthouses and designer clothes," Bethany replied bluntly, "and if you're about to lose everything, then I need to protect myself. I'm moving out tonight." The line went dead, leaving Wayne alone in his office with the wreckage of his life spread across his desk in the form of legal documents and newspaper clippings. Across town, Darlene was tucking her daughters into bed, reading them a story about a phoenix that rose from the ashes stronger and more beautiful than before. Camden sat beside them, adding voices for different characters and making the girls giggle with his dramatic interpretations. "Mama," River said sleepily as Darlene kissed her good night. "Did the phoenix hurt the people who tried to burn her?" "No, sweetheart," Darlene replied softly. "The phoenix didn't need to hurt anyone. She just showed them that they couldn't destroy something that was meant to soar." As Darlene and Camden left the children's room, Camden pulled her into his arms, his love and admiration evident in every touch. "How does it feel?" he asked, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. "Getting justice after all these years, like finally being able to breathe again," Darlene replied honestly. "But this is just the beginning. Wayne's going to lose everything, and he's going to understand exactly what he threw away when he chose greed over love." Outside their penthouse windows, Manhattan glittered like a battlefield, where Darlene Hill had just won the first major victory in a war 8 years. In the making, the empire built on ashes was about to crumble, and from its ruins, justice would finally rise. Chapter 7a. Father's desperation. Wayne's Porsche felt like a prison as he sat in Whitmore Preparatory Academy's parking lot, watching other parents collect their children with casual ease. People whose lives weren't imploding. 2 weeks had passed since the SEC investigation became public, and Wayne's world crumbled faster than he could comprehend. Assets frozen, business under federal investigation, Bethany filing for divorce. But none of that mattered compared to the 3 little girls about to walk out those doors as daughters who had no idea their biological father was desperately watching from the shadows. At 3:15 p.m., the school doors opened. Wayne's heart clenched when he spotted them: Maya with her serious expression, Zoe with paint stains on her uniform, River practically bouncing as she animatedly told her sisters something, requiring extensive hand gestures. They were beautiful, perfect, everything he had lost and never known he'd been missing. Camden's Range Rover pulled into the pickup lane, and Wayne watched his daughters' faces light up like Christmas morning. River broke into a run, launching herself into Camden's arms with complete trust. Papa, Camden, River's voice carried across the parking lot. We're going to build rockets next week, and I want mine purple with silver flames. Camden spun her around, laughing. Purple with silver flame sounds perfect, little warrior. Maya stepped forward with a frown. Papa, there's a man in the parking lot who's been watching us. Mrs. Henderson asked me if I knew who he was. Wayne's blood turned to ice. A 7-year-old daughter had not only noticed his surveillance but reported it to school officials. Camden's demeanor shifted immediately, military training evident as he assessed threats. His eyes scanned until they landed on Wayne's Porsche. Girls, Camden said calmly, get in the car, seatbelts on. Is everything okay? Papa? Zoe asked, sensing the tension. Everything's fine, sweetheart, Camden assured her, reaching for his phone as the children climbed into the Range Rover. Wayne made an impulsive decision. Instead of driving away, he got out and walked toward Camden's vehicle. Mr. Pierce, Wayne called out, desperation undisguised his voice. Wait, please, I just want to talk to them for a minute. Camden positioned himself between Wayne and the car, stand protective and unmistakably threatening. Get back in your car and drive away. Larson, now. They're my daughters, Wayne said, voice breaking. I just want to meet them. Properly, I want them to know who I am. They know who their father is. Camden replied coldly, and it isn't you. Through the car windows, Wayne could see 3 faces watching with confusion and alarm. Maya was whispering to her sisters. Zoe looked scared. River looked angry. Protective instincts inherited from her mother already activating. Please, Wayne begged, just 5 minutes. Let me introduce myself. Let you. What Camden's voice was dangerously quiet, confused, and traumatized. 3 children, because you're having a midlife crisis. I'm their biological father. Wayne shouted, biology doesn't make you a father. Camden replied, being there makes you a father. You're nothing to them but a stranger who's been stalking them. Wayne could see River rolling down her window, her 7-year-old voice carrying clearly across the parking lot. Papa. Camden, who is that man? Why is he yelling at you? Camden immediately softened his voice, just someone who's confused. Princess. Papa's handling it. Should I call Mama? River asked, her hand already reaching for the phone Camden had given her for emergencies. Not yet, sweetheart, just stay in the car with your sisters. Okay. Wayne felt like he was dying inside. His daughter's own flesh and blood was talking about calling Darlene because a stranger was bothering her. Papa. Camden to River. Wayne wasn't a potential father or family member. He was a threat to be managed. I can give them things, Wayne said desperately. I can provide for them. I have money, connections, opportunities. Had Camden corrected according to the news. You had money, now you're under federal investigation for fraud, and your wife is divorcing you. What exactly do you think you can offer 3 children who already have everything they need? The truth of Camden's words hit Wayne. Like a physical blow, he had nothing to offer his daughters except chaos and confusion. His empire was crumbling. His reputation was destroyed, and his personal life was a disaster. Meanwhile, Camden could offer them stability, love, and security. I can change, Wayne said, hearing the pathetic desperation in his own voice. I can be better. I can be the father they deserve. Where was that commitment 8 years ago when they needed you? Camden asked. Where was that dedication when their mother was dying in childbirth? Where was that paternal instinct when they were fighting for their lives in the NICU? Each question was like a knife to Wayne's soul because they all had the same answer. He hadn't been there. He had been in the Malda, honeymooning with Bethany while his daughter struggled to survive and their mother recovered from nearly dying to bring them into the world. I didn't know. Wayne started. Because you didn't want to. No, Camden cut him off. You made your choice 8 years ago. You chose your own selfish desires over your family's welfare. You don't get to change your mind now that it's convenient for you. Papa Camden. Maya's voice was small and worried. Is that man going to hurt us? The question shattered Wayne's heart into a million pieces. His own daughter was asking if her biological father was going to hurt her family, the family that he should have been part of but had thrown away for a shallow woman and temporary pleasure. No, sweetheart, Camden assured her, never taking his eyes off Wayne. No one is going to hurt our family. I promise. Wayne noticed the emphasis on our family, a unit that explicitly didn't include him. He was an outsider, a threat, a problem to be solved. I'll stay away from the school. Wayne said finally, the words torn from his soul. But I want visitation rights. I want legal recognition as their father. Camden's smile was sharp and humorless. You sign away your parental rights as part of your divorce settlement. Remember, you legally abandoned 3 unborn children because you thought Bethany was a better investment. I can challenge that. I can get a lawyer. With what money? Camden asked brutally. Your assets are frozen. Your wife is divorcing you, and you're about to be indicted for federal crimes. Even if you could afford a lawyer, what judge is going to award custody to a man who's under investigation for fraud? Wayne's phone rang, adding insult to injury. Bethy's name appeared on the screen, probably calling to inform him of some new indignity she was inflicting through her divorce attorney. Answer it, Camden suggested coldly. I'm sure your wife has some more good news about your crumbling life. Wayne declined the call, but the damage was done. He was a man with no money, no reputation, no family, and no future, trying to claim children who were happy and secure without him. I love them. Wayne whispered the words, barely audible. No, Camden replied firmly. You love the idea of them. You love the potential they represent for redeeming your failures, but you don't know them well enough to love them. You don't know that Maya wants to be a CEO like her mother, or that Zoe paints pictures of our family every week, or that River wants to be a superhero so she can protect people like I protected their mother. Each detail was another reminder of how much Wayne had missed, how much Camden knew about Wayne's own children that Wayne himself would never learn. Please, Wayne tried one last time. Just let me tell them who I am. Let me explain what Camden's voice was cold as Arctic wind. Explain that you abandoned their mother when she was pregnant. Explain that you chose another woman over them before they were even born. Explain that you spent 8 years ignoring their existence until it became convenient to remember them. Wayne had no answer because there was no good answer. Everything Camden was saying was true, and the truth was damning. Stay away from my family, Larson, Camden said, moving back toward his car. If I see you near my daughters again, I'll have you arrested for stalking, and trust me, with Your current legal problems you can't afford to add more charges. As Camden drove away with Wayne's daughters who called another man Papa and looked to another man for protection, Wayne stood alone in the parking lot, feeling more lost and broken than he had ever felt in his life. His phone rang. Again, this time it was his lawyer, probably calling to deliver more bad news about the SEC investigation or Bethy's divorce proceedings. Wayne declined that call too and climbed back into his Porsche, surrounded by the wreckage of the life he had built on stolen dreams for the first time since this nightmare began. Wayne truly understood what he had lost: not just money or reputation or a business empire, but 3 beautiful daughters who would grow up calling another man Papa, who would walk down wedding aisles without him, who would give their own children a grandfather's love that he would never earn. He had gambled his family for temporary pleasure and shallow ambition, and he had lost everything that mattered. Now, he was just a stranger in a parking lot, watching the life he could have had drive away in someone else's car. Chapter 8. The unraveling federal marshals arrived at Larson Enterprises at exactly 9:17 a.m. on a Tuesday that would mark Wayne's empire's complete destruction. Wayne watched from his corner office window as they placed asset seizure notices on the building's front doors, officially freezing everything he thought he owned. Employees gathered in clusters, whispering and pointing, faces showing shock and vindication that comes when watching a tyrant fall. Wayne's hands shook as he poured another scotch, though it was barely past breakfast. The past month had been a relentless avalanche of legal disasters, media humiliation, and personal betrayals. The SEC investigation had uncovered not just the misappropriation of Darlene's trust fund, but a pattern of financial irregularities that painted Wayne as either criminally incompetent or deliberately fraudulent. Mr. Son, his assistant's voice trembled through the intercom. The FBI agents are here. They're asking for you to come down to the lobby. Wayne closed his eyes, savoring what he knew would be his last moments in the office that had once been his kingdom. The corner office with its panoramic Manhattan view, the mahogany desk where he had signed million-dollar deals, the wall of awards that had fed his ego for 8 years, all built on Darlene's stolen dreams foundation. Tell them I'll be right down, Wayne said, his voice hollow. The FBI agents were professional, but implacable. Agent Sarah Chin, a stern woman in her 40s, read Wayne his rights with mechanical precision born of countless repetitions. The charges were extensive securities fraud, wire fraud, tax evasion, and money laundering. Each count carried years in federal prison. Mr. Larson, you have the right to remain silent, Agent Chun continued as handcuffs clicked around Wayne's wrists. Anything you say can and will be used against you. As Wayne was led through the lobby in handcuffs past employees who had once respected and feared him, he thought about Darlene's promise weeks ago. You'll discover exactly how much power a woman scorned can wield when she has nothing left to lose. She had kept her word with devastating precision. The media circus outside was a feeding frenzy. Reporters shouted questions. Photographers captured Wayne's humiliating perp walk and news. Helicopters circled overhead like vultures. Wayne's fall from grace was playing out in real time on every major network. The headline on the New York Post delivered the final blow to his pride. Self-made fraud, fallen CO built empire on stolen love. Bail was set at $10 million. Money Wayne no longer had access to his frozen assets made him effectively indigent, and no bail bondsman would touch federal fraud charges. Wayne spent his first night in 20 years in a jail cell. Meanwhile, in a luxury hotel suite, Bethany was having the time of her life. Darling, she purred into her phone, speaking to her divorce attorney while getting a manicure. Make sure you emphasize how shocked I am by Wayne's criminal behavior. I had no idea about any financial irregularities The truth was Bethany had known exactly what kind of man Wayne was when she'd seduced him away from Darlene. She had simply calculated that being Mrs. Wayne, Larson was worth the risk of eventually being discarded, but Bethany was a survivor the moment Wayne's empire started crumbling. She had activated her exit strategy. Her affair with Marcus Whitmore, heir to a pharmaceutical fortune, had been going on for 6 months. Insurance for when Wayne's luck ran out. I want half of everything that isn't seized by the government. Bethany continued to house in the Hamptons the art collection. Whatever they can't prove was purchased with fraudulent money. Bethy's phone buzzed with a text from Wayne. Please come see me. I need to explain everything. I love you. She deleted the message without reading it completely. Love was a luxury Bethany had never been able to afford. That evening, while Wayne sat in his jail cell and Bethany planned her new life, Camden was giving Maya, Zoe, and River their baths, listening to their chatter about school and friends and the thousand small joys that made up a child's world. Papa Camden, River said seriously as Camden helped her wash her hair, why was that man at our school so sad? Camden paused, considering how to answer. Sometimes grown-ups make choices that hurt people, and sometimes those choices have consequences that make the grown-ups very sad. Did he hurt Mama? Maya asked with typical directness. A long time ago, yes, Camden said carefully. Before you were born, that man made choices that hurt her very much. But Mama's not sad anymore, Zoe observed. She smiles all the time now, especially when you're here. Camden's heart swelled with love for these 3 remarkable children who had become his daughters in every way that mattered. That's right, sweetheart, your mama is happy now because we have our family, and nothing can change that. Good, River declared with finality, because we don't need any more family. We have you and Mama and each other. That's enough, more than enough, Camden thought as he tucked them into their beds later. It's everything in the master bedroom. Darlene stood at the window, looking out at the city that had once been her battlefield and was now her kingdom. The news was reporting Wayne's arrest on every channel, complete with footage of him being led away in handcuffs. She should have felt satisfaction, triumph, vindication for 8 years of pain and struggle. Instead, she felt empty. Camden appeared behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. How do you feel? He asked softly. Like it's over, Darlene replied, leaning into his warmth. I thought I would feel more victorious, but mostly I just feel tired. Revenge is exhausting, Camden observed, even when it's justified. Do you think I went too far? Darlene asked. Camden turned her in his arms, his blue eyes serious and loving. I think he did exactly what needed to be done. Wayne Larson built his life on stolen dreams and abandoned responsibilities. You gave him consequences that matched his actions. Marry me, Camden whispered against her lips, the proposal sudden but not surprising. I thought you'd never ask. Darlene laughed, tears of joy mixing with exhaustion. Tomorrow, Camden said urgently, let's get married. Tomorrow. I don't want to wait another day to call you my wife officially. As they held each other high above Manhattan, Wayne sat in his jail cell, finally understanding the true cost of his choices. He had traded a woman who loved him unconditionally for a woman who loved only his money. He had traded 3 beautiful daughters for fleeting satisfaction. He had traded a real family for the hollow success of an empire built on lies. The unraveling was complete. All that remained was learning to live with the consequences. Chapter 9. Hearts in the Balance. The beach house in the Hamptons had always been Darlene's sanctuary, but tonight it felt like the most romantic place on earth. Camden had suggested they escape Manhattan's chaos for the weekend, bringing the children to the coastal retreat where Darlene had spent childhood summers. Now as sunset painted the sky in pink and gold over the Atlantic, Camden was down on one knee in the sand while Maya, Zoe, and River giggled behind beach grass where they thought they were hiding Darlene Hill. Camden said, his voice steady despite the emotion shining in his blue eyes. You and your daughter saved my life in ways you'll never fully understand. You taught me that love isn't something you fall into, it's something you choose every single day. The ring box in his hands contained a stunning vintage Art Deco diamond that had belonged to his grandmother, but Darlene's eyes were fixed on Camden's face, memorizing every detail of this perfect moment. I choose you, Camden continued, not because you're perfect, but because you're perfectly right for me. I choose Maya's brilliant mind and fierce determination. I choose Zoe's artistic soul and gentle heart. I choose River's warrior spirit and boundless courage. I choose our family, our future, and our forever. Say yes, Mama, River shouted from behind the beach grass, making all three girls dissolve into giggles. We helped Papa pick the ring, Maya added, abandoning all pretense of hiding, and we planned the whole proposal. Zoe chimed in her romantic nature, clearly delighted. Darlene laughed through her tears as the three most important people in her world surrounded them on the beach. Did you all conspire against me? It was River's idea, Camden admitted, pulling their youngest daughter into his lap while still kneeling in the sand. She said you deserved a proposal that included your whole family because families stick together, River declared seriously, and you're already our papa in our hearts, so we just need the papers to make it official. Darlene looked at this perfect scene, the man she loved more than breathing, the children who had given her purpose when she had nothing left, the beach where she had dreamed of happiness as a lonely child, and felt her heart expand with joy. Yes, she whispered, then louder, yes, Camden Pierce. Yes to all of it. Camden slipped the ring onto her finger as their daughters cheered, then pulled her down into the sand for a kiss that tasted like salt air and infinite possibilities. That night, after the children were asleep, Camden and Darlene sat on the deck, sharing champagne and watching the moon's reflection dance on the waves. I love you, Darlene said softly. I love the way you love our daughters. I love the way you make me feel safe enough to be vulnerable. Even Wayne, Camden asked gently, knowing this conversation was needed. Darlene was quiet for a moment. I don't know if Wayne deserves my forgiveness, but I know I deserve peace, and I can't have peace while carrying this much anger. But 3 days later, when they returned to Manhattan, Wayne did exactly what Camden had predicted. The letter was waiting in Darlene's office, hand delivered by courier. Wayne's familiar handwriting made her stomach clench with remembered pain, but she opened it anyway. Darlene, I know I have no right to write to you, and even less right to ask forgiveness, but I'm writing anyway because I finally understand what I lost when I walked away from you and our children. I've had time to think in here, and I realize everything good in my life came from you. Your love, your money, your families, connections, your unwavering belief in my potential. You gave me everything, and I threw it away for something worthless. I can't undo the damage I've caused. I can't erase the pain I put you through or the years I missed with our daughters. But I'm asking, begging for a chance to try making amends. I love you, Darlene. I loved you then. I love you now, and I'll love you for the rest of my life. What I felt for Bethany wasn't love, it was ego and weakness and the foolish belief that I deserve something better than what I already had. Our daughters are beautiful and brilliant, and they deserve to know their biological father, not to replace Camden. I can see that he's been the father I should have been, but to understand their complete history, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to earn your forgiveness. I'll serve my time. I'll give up any claim to my former assets. I'll sign whatever legal documents you want, but please give me a chance to prove that I can be the man you once believed I was. All my love, Wayne. I heard about your engagement. Camden is a lucky man, and I hope he knows what a treasure he's gaining. You deserve all the happiness in the world. Darlene read the letter twice, then set aside and stared out at the Manhattan skyline. Wayne's words had stirred up emotions. She thought she had buried Mama? Maya's voice came from the doorway. Is everything okay? You look sad, Darlene. Quickly composed herself, smiling at her. Eldest daughter, I'm fine, sweetheart, just thinking about some grown-up things. Maya climbed into Darlene's lap. Is it about the man from our school? The one who made Papa Camden upset? Yes, it's about him. He wrote me a letter. What did he say? He said he was sorry for hurting our family. Darlene replied carefully, and he asked if he could be part of our lives. Maya was quiet, processing this with the seriousness of a tiny adult. Do you want him to be part of our lives? I don't know. Darlene admitted honestly. What do you think? I think, Maya said slowly, that we already have a complete family. Papa Camden takes care of us, loves us, and shows up every single day. This other man only showed up after everything was good. Already, that's very wise, baby girl. But Maya continued, if he's really sorry and really wants to be better, maybe he could start by being a better person without us. Mama, you taught me that forgiveness doesn't mean letting people hurt you. Again, Darlene hugged her daughter, tighter, amazed by the wisdom in such a young mind. You're absolutely right. Forgiveness is about letting go of anger, not about giving people permission to hurt you again. That evening when Camden came home from work, he found Darlene in their bedroom staring at Wayne's letter. Without a word, he read it over her shoulder, then set aside and pulled her into his arms. What are you thinking? He asked softly. I'm thinking that I feel sorry for him. Darlene replied honestly, not sorry enough to forgive him or give him another chance, but sorry that he destroyed his own life so completely. And I'm thinking that I'm grateful he showed me his true nature 8 years ago, before I wasted more of my life on someone who wasn't worthy of it. Camden smiled, pressing a gentle kiss to her temple. I love your compassionate heart, but I also love that you're not letting it override your common sense. I'm going to write him back. Darlene decided one final letter to close this chapter. Forever, what will you say? Darlene looked up at the man who had saved her in every way possible, who loved her children as if they were his own, who had proven every single day that real love was about choice, not just feeling. I'm going to tell him the truth. She said that forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation, that being sorry doesn't undo the damage, and that some chances once lost are lost forever. And then I'm going to marry you and focus on the family we've built together, the family that chose each other and fought for each other and proved that love is stronger than betrayal. Camden kissed her then, pouring all his love and commitment into the connection between them. Outside their bedroom windows, Manhattan sparkled with possibility, and in the rooms down the hall, 3 beautiful little girls slept peacefully, secure in the knowledge that they were loved unconditionally by the parents who had chosen them. Tomorrow, Darlene would write her final letter to Wayne Larson. Tonight, she would plan her wedding to Camden Pierce and dream about the beautiful future they were building. Together, the balance had tipped decisively toward love, and nothing would ever tip it back. Chapter 10, Love conquers all. Darlene's final letter to Wayne was shorter than his desperate plea, but infinitely more powerful in its quiet finality. Wayne, I received your letter, and I want you to know that I forgive you, not for your sake, but for mine. Carrying anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. I refuse to poison my happiness any longer. However, forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. You made your choice 8 years ago when you abandoned your pregnant wife for temporary pleasure. You made it again when you signed away your parental rights. You made it every day for 8 years when you never once tried to find us or ask about the children you left behind. Maya, Zoe, and River have a father. His name is Camden Pierce, and he has earned that title through 8 years of love, sacrifice, an unwavering commitment. He was there for their first steps first, words first day of school, and every single day in between. He chose them when they were not his biological children, loved them when they had nothing to offer him but their pure hearts. You contributed DNA, he contributed everything else that matters. I will tell our daughters about you when they're old enough to understand, but I will also tell them that family is not about biology. It's about choice, commitment, and love. You forfeited your right to choose them when you chose yourself instead. Don't contact us again. Build a better life for yourself, but build it somewhere else with someone else. We are complete without you. Goodbye, Wayne. Darlene Pierce. Soon, 2 weeks later, that same letter would be read aloud in a federal courtroom as part of Wayne's sentencing hearing, but by then Darlene would be too busy being blissfully happy to care about Wayne's legal fate. The conversation with the children happened on a Sunday morning while Camden was making pancakes and the girls were still in their pajamas, curled up with Darlene on the couch. I need to tell you something important, Darlene began, her voice gentle but serious enough to capture their attention. Do you remember the man who was at your school, the one who upset Papa Camden? The sad man. Zoe said immediately. He felt angry and sad and desperate. That's right, baby girl, that man's name is Wayne Larson, and he's your biological father. The silence that followed was profound. Maya processed this with her typical analytical approach while Zoe looked confused and River's face scrunched up in indignation. What does that mean exactly? Maya asked carefully. It means that before you were born, before I met Papa Camden, I was married to Wayne. He helped create you three, but then he left us before you were born because he was scared and selfish and not ready to be a father. But Papa Camden chose us, Maya said firmly, understanding immediately. Even though we weren't his biological children, he chose to be our father. Exactly, Darlene confirmed. Papa Camden is your real father because he's the one who has loved you and taken care of you every single day. Biology doesn't make someone a parent. Love does. Does this mean we have to see the sad man? Zoe asked worriedly. No, sweetheart, you never have to see him if you don't want to. He's not part of our family anymore. River stood up on the couch, hands on her hips. Good, because Papa Camden is our real daddy, and we don't need anyone else. Camden appeared in the doorway with heart-shaped pancakes, his eyes soft with love as he listened to his daughters defend their family unit. That's right, little warrior, he said, gathering them close. I may not have helped create you, but I choose to love you every single day. That's what makes me your papa forever and always. Maya asked, needing reassurance. Forever and always, Camden promised solemnly. Nothing will ever change that. 3 weeks later, on a perfect June morning, at the Hamptons Beach House, Darlene Hill became Mrs. Camden Pierce in a ceremony that was everything she dreamed of, and nothing like her first weddings. Elaborate production. The setup was simple but magical. White chairs arranged in rows on sand with a hydrangea and rose arch that Zoe had helped design. The guest list was intimate: Judge Elena Hill, Marcus Pierce, Winston Blackwood, and close friends, plus 3 most important wedding guests who were practically vibrating with excitement. Maya wore a sophisticated navy dress and carried a small bouquet while serving as maid of honor. Zoe had painted all the programs by hand and wore a flowing pink dress that made her look like a fairy princess. River, true to her nature, wore a purple dress with a superhero cape underneath for emergencies and carried the rings on a pillow. She had bedazzled herself. Camden stood at the altar in a perfectly tailored gray suit, but his eyes were only for Darlene as she walked down the sandy aisle. She wore a simple but stunning champagne-colored dress that flowed in the ocean breeze. Her hair adorned with the same hydrangeas that decorated the arch. When Judge Elena asked who gave this woman to be married, River shouted, "We do," before anyone else could answer, making the entire wedding party dissolve into laughter. The vows Camden and Darlene had written themselves were simple but profound. "I promise to choose you every day," Darlene said, her voice clear and strong. "Not just when it's easy, but especially when it's hard. I promise to love not just you, but the family we've built. Together I promise to never take for granted the gift of second chances and true love. I promise to be the husband you deserve and the father our daughters need," Camden replied, his voice thick with emotion. "I promise to protect this family with everything I have. I promise to show our daughters every day what real love looks like, so they'll never settle for anything less." When Judge Elena pronounced them husband and wife, their first kiss as a married couple was interrupted by three little girls launching themselves into their parents' arms, creating a group hug that perfectly symbolized their unbreakable family bond. The reception was held on the beach house deck with twinkling lights strung between the posts and a cake that Zoe had insisted be decorated with edible flowers. Camden's best man speech was delivered by Marcus Pierce, who told stories about watching his brother fall completely in love with not just Darlene, but with the idea of being a father. Darlene's matron of honor speech was given by Maya, who had prepared remarks about how families are built with love, not just genetics. As the sun set over the Atlantic and the children played with sparklers on the beach, Camden and Darlene danced their first song as husband and wife. They were so lost in each other that they didn't notice the figure standing on the public beach, access about 100 yards away, partially hidden behind the sand dunes. Wayne had been released on bail pending his sentencing, and against every piece of legal advice he had received, he had driven to the Hamptons. He told himself he just wanted to see his daughters one more time, to witness their happiness from afar, to understand what he had lost. What he saw destroyed him completely. Through his binoculars, Wayne watched Darlene dance with her new husband, radiant with joy in a way she had never been with him. Even during their happiest moments, he watched Camden spin their daughters around the dance floor, their laughter carrying on the ocean breeze. He watched the family celebration that was everything he had once imagined having, but had thrown away for temporary pleasure and shallow ambition. The children looked nothing like the struggling, impoverished family he had pictured in his mind during his worst moments. They were confident, happy, secure children who were deeply loved and who loved fiercely in return. They called Camden Papa with such natural affection that it was clear he had earned that title through 8 years of devoted fatherhood. Maya had grown into a serious, intelligent young lady who would clearly be a force to be reckoned with someday. Zoe was an ethereal little artist whose gentle nature was balanced by obvious inner strength. River was a tiny warrior who would protect her family with the fierce loyalty she had inherited from her mother. They were perfect. They were everything Wayne had dreamed of having with Darlene, and they belonged completely to another man. As Wayne watched Camden lift Darlene in his arms while their daughters cheered and clapped, he finally understood the magnitude of what he had lost. Not just money or reputation or business success, but the only thing that actually mattered, a family that loved each other unconditionally. Wayne's phone buzzed with a text from his lawyer. Sensing moved up to Monday. Prosecutor recommending 15 years. Need to discuss plea options. 15 years. By the time Wayne was released from prison, his daughters would be in their 20s. They would have graduated from high school and college, probably married, possibly with children of their own. Camden would walk them down the aisle at their weddings. Camden would be grandfather to Wayne's biological grandchildren. Wayne would be nothing to them but a cautionary tale their mother might tell them about making better choices. As the wedding reception wound down and the family began cleaning up, Wayne made his final decision. He turned away from the beach house, walked back to his car, and drove away from the Hamptons forever 3. Months later, the Pierce family received a legal document that Camden read aloud to Darlene while the children were at school. Wayne Robert son hereby formally and permanently relinquishes all parental rights to Maya Hill Pierce, Zoe Hill Pierce, and River Hill Pierce. This relinquishment is voluntary, permanent, and irrevocable. The document was signed, notarized, and filed with the court on the same day Wayne was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. His lawyer had negotiated the shorter sentence in exchange for his complete cooperation with federal prosecutors and his agreement to never contact the Pierce family again. Bethany had remarried 2 weeks after her divorce was finalized, becoming Mrs. Marcus Whitmore in a lavish ceremony that received no media attention because nobody cared about her anymore. 1 year later, Darlene stood in the same beach house watching Camden teach their daughters to surf in the gentle Atlantic waves. Maya was approaching it with scientific precision, analyzing wave patterns and calculating optimal timing. Zoe was treating it like performance art, focusing more on graceful movements than actual surfing technique. River was attacking the waves with typical fearlessness, determined to master surfing through sheer force of will. Darlene's hand rested on her slightly rounded belly where Camden's biological child was growing, a child who would be born into the most loving family imaginable, with 3 devoted big sisters and parents who had learned that real love was worth fighting for. Her phone rang and she glanced at the caller. ID Winston Blackwood. Hello, Mr. Blackwood, she answered warmly. My dear. Winston's elderly voice was excited. I have wonderful news. The Children's Education Foundation Board has voted unanimously to name you Philanthropist of the Year. The ceremony is next month, and I do hope you'll accept the award. I'm honored, Darlene replied, watching her husband surface next to River, who was triumphantly riding a small wave toward shore. There's more, Winston continued. Forbes wants to do a cover story about your remarkable journey from betrayal to triumph. They're calling it the Phoenix Files, how Darlene Pierce built an empire on love, not lies. Darlene smiled, remembering another Forbes cover from what felt like a lifetime ago. I'd be happy to participate, Mr. Blackwood, but I want the focus to be on the foundation's work, not on my personal story, of course. My dear, though, I must say your story is quite inspiring. Not everyone can rise from such devastating betrayal to build something so beautiful. As Darlene ended the call, Camden emerged from the ocean with their daughters, all of them dripping wet and laughing. River ran to her immediately, wrapping her sandy arms around Darlene's legs. Mama, did you see me surf? I rode that wave all the way to shore. I saw everything, brave girl, Darlene replied, smoothing River's wet hair. You were magnificent. Papa Camden says we can have a surfing competition tomorrow, Maya added, ever competitive. I've been studying technique, videos online, and I want to paint the waves, Zoe chimed in. They're so beautiful when they catch the light. Camden wrapped his arms around his wife from behind, both of them watching their daughters plan tomorrow's adventures with the boundless optimism of children who knew they were deeply loved. Any regrets? Camden murmured against Darlene's ear. Darlene leaned back against his chest, feeling the solid warmth of the man who had saved her in every way possible. None, she said firmly. Wayne's betrayal was the worst thing that ever happened to me, but it was also the best thing because it led me to you and this life we built together, even though it caused you so much pain, especially because of the pain. Darlene replied, the pain taught me the difference between someone who says they love you and someone who proves it every single day. The pain made me strong enough to recognize real love when it found me as sunset painted the sky over the Atlantic. The Pierce family walked hand in hand back toward their beach house. Behind them, waves erased their footprint from sand, but the love they shared would last forever somewhere In a federal prison, Wayne Larson was learning that justice, while sometimes delayed, was always served. He had lost everything: freedom, fortune, family, and future. He would spend the next 12 years thinking about choices that brought him to this place and the perfect life he'd thrown away for nothing. Darlene Pierce Nile had won completely. She had her revenge, her justice, her true love, and her perfect family. She had built an empire on love instead of lies, and nothing would ever tear it down. Love had conquered all, just as it always did when it was real, patient, and true. The phoenix had risen from the ashes, more beautiful than ever, and this time she would soar forever. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next.